the sound of laughter, the touch of love, the taste of a favorite food, the scent of a newly bathed baby, and the sight of our flaming chalice. May all our senses awaken and provide joy.
We have a moment of personal meditation.
And so I satisfy your committee, myself, and I hope you, the congregation, with now the time for joy and celebration. We will start first with definitions from the Merriam-Webster Dictionary for our topics today. Joy, an emotion that displays a state of happiness or a source or cause of delight. Joy's root origin denote to rejoice. Joy synonyms are familiar. Synonyms: beatitude, blessedness, bliss, blissfulness, felicity, gladness, happiness, warm fuzzy. As are its antonyms, its opposites: calamity, ill-being, misery, sadness, unhappiness, and wretchedness. On to celebration. 1, to do something special or enjoyable for an important event, for an occasion, for a holiday. Number 2, to praise someone or something. And number 3, to say that someone or something is great or important. And finally, number 4, to perform a religious ceremony. Familiar synonyms: exalt, extol, and antonyms: break, transgress, and violate. Rituals, from the dictionary: done as part of a ceremony or always done in a particular situation and in the same way each time. Now, I find the definitions for joy short, to the point, and a perfect expression of my need for clarity. The dictionary definition for celebration is a little wordy for me. I define celebration more simply as recreating, honoring, or rewarding. And I create my own definition for ritual as events that signify change or commemoration. I've always felt that the most effective way to teach a concept or make a decision is by example. Most people do this even when they don't realize they are doing it. When you are going to paint your living room a different color than the beige it is to blue, isn't one of your first thoughts to select an example of the blue you want? Do you visualize the ocean, or the sky, or the navy blue of a sailor suit? This is learning and acting by example. Examples of my joys include 2 that always bring a smile to my face and at times a tear to my eye. As a senior in high school, I prepared for the state vocal solo finals with my teacher. In my final practice session before the event, I sang the song with such perfection that as the last note floated away, my teacher looked at me with a look that said it all. And after a moment of silence, I burst into tears and cried with a joy I'm not sure I have ever experienced before. She and I knew, we both knew, that I could probably never repeat that perfection again. And I didn't. But I had created it once, and once was enough. Go away from my door. Go away, away, away from my bedside and bother me no more. And bother me no more. My voice is much less now and certainly not the quality of that long ago time. I was a soprano then. But the memory and the joy I experience when I replay it in my mind is as pure and as joyful as ever. Oh, I remember that moment. As a mid-30s black professional woman with a bachelor's and master's degree, a homeowner and single parent to one birth child and one adopted son, I desperately wanted a daughter. At the end of 4 years, I was advised by a friend in the Department of Human Services that my case manager was violating several rules in not approving my application. My friend also expressed the opinion that the reason for the manager's attitude was based on the characteristics of me that I have just outlined to you. For the manager was white, single, middle-aged, childless, and envious of my accomplishments. I filed a complaint, which ultimately verified that my application had been mishandled and was immediately placed at the top of the waiting list, since placement was based on date of application, not date of approval. I remember the joy I felt the moment I saw my daughter for the first time, and the second, and the third, for I had to have three visits with her before I could take her home, and did them on 3 consecutive days. As I write this, and when I wrote this sermon, I was grinning ear to ear as I sat in my daughter's home in Jacksonville. She is now 34 years old, and the joy I experienced that first day repeats itself over and over again, though not continuously. My sons are my pride. She added the joy. I want to note that I combined 2 of my joys into one. My high school music teacher's name was Nancy Jacobs. And with a change of spelling, I named my daughter after her. And she is Nancy Jacobs. My middle name, Marie Harvest, her married name. Not long ago, I viewed a video posted on Facebook. A military family with a young daughter, 4 or 5 or so, had already made several moves during her young life. She had a stuffed animal, I think it was a rabbit, but I'm not sure, that was her constant companion. It was always with her and never packed during a move. But during this move, it disappeared, and it couldn't be found. The parents assumed it was packed, and during unpacking, it would be found. Last box opened, of course, and there it was. When her father handed it to her, she looked at it, and a moment later, she broke into loud, racking cries of joy. I looked at her on the video, and I knew that even at that young age, she knew with all her heart what joy is. We should all be so lucky as to remember that freedom of expression. Rekindle it in your own life, in your own heart, and in the hearts of others. Joy doesn't require either a celebration of the event or ritual to create it. It requires only that we recognize it, that it happens, and embrace it for what it is. A moment of significance that can change the darkest cloud into the brightest sky and the most colorful rainbow. Ritual. How important is ritual? I find it crucial. It tells us that things are the same while pointing out change. Think of all the rituals, large and small, that we embrace. An exchange of rings as a sign of love and commitment, engagement. a bridal shower or bachelor or bachelorette party, preparation, a wedding, the creation of a new family, honoring the birth of a child with a naming or a christening ceremony, an extension of family, graduations from preschool through college, growth, retirement party, accomplishment, and relief, funerals or memorial services, passage and remembrance. And within each of these rituals are the smaller rituals and the celebrations that say, we have been here before and we will continue to go on. We can change as we remain the same. The Christmas Eve ritual for my children and me was Christmas Eve service at First Unitarian Universalist Church in Louisville, Kentucky, followed by Chinese buffet, either at a local restaurant or prepared at home. No gifts opened on Christmas Eve. That was our ritual. No presents. Kids didn't even ask. Ever. And Christmas Day was always a stay-at-home, pajamas all-day day with friends and family visiting us in pajamas and robes. They dressed and then changed when they got to the house. It was a fun ritual for us. Now, my son knew the importance of ritual. I taught, and he learned well. He also knew the importance of making it your own. For his family, when he became an adult, he designed that they would have new pajamas as Christmas gifts every year, opened as a present on Christmas Eve. So he got around that. And a trip to the movie on Christmas Day. Yeah, he just changed it all around with a stop sometime during the day at my house and his in-laws' house. Change. We as people crave change while we also fear it. And I just want to tell you here, if you have any friend who does speeches or sermons, always be careful what you say because we're always listening. My friend and associate, Deanna, expressed her fear of change to me just a few days ago. I pointed out that few people wear the same clothes 2 days in a row or eat the same meal on consecutive days. We want change. We just want it to be manageable, and thus ritual provides that to us. Change is needed. It is not an enemy. Think of change as the following acronym. C, constant. It is a part of everyday living. Don't be caught off guard. Expect it. H, humor. Look for it. Use it to get from the old to the new. Laughter keeps us sane. And any speaker who doesn't include some laughter is going to lose you. So it's there. A, ability. Without change, there is no need to test or develop our abilities. N, necessity. As winter is a necessity for growth in spring, so change is for people. G, growth. Riding a bike requires pedaling or one falls. Growing prevents the falling. And the E is both excitement and energy. Boredom is draining. Change leads to excitement, which leads to energy. And on to celebration. Families, business groups, congregations, choirs, and covenant groups are all teams. They may all have different purposes and reasons for being, but to be successful, they must all go through the 5 stages that every team must. When I do workshops on team building, I always teach the 5 stages of teams, and each stage is purpose and behavior. The first stage is forming. During forming, the reason for getting together is explored. The vision is determined, its norms defined, and roles are created and assigned. You determine who will be the chair, who will be the recorder, who will be the treasurer if that's needed. All of these are done when you form. The second stage is storming, and it's necessary. Storming involves processing and reforming. No, we don't really want that as part of our agenda. We're going to work on this and send that to another committee. There may be confusion and triangulation and undermining. There may even be some stabbing at the leader and backbiting. It's not as bad as it sounds. When the second stage is acknowledged, it serves its purpose and moves the team forward stronger and more sure of itself than it was before. The third stage is norming. It is where production begins to take place and synergy begins. People begin to rise to the occasion. They take on responsibility and a feeling of family begins. The fourth stage, performing, begins plus productivity. People rise above the norm. They become self-directed. The business, the meetings, the gatherings move smoothly. Without the fifth stage, none of the other 4 matter. It is the fifth stage that is the key to ongoing productivity, to harmony, and to success. The fifth stage is celebrating. In celebrating, we recreate, we honor, and we reward. I worked for the Kentucky Commission on Human Rights for more than 8 years. It was an extraordinary place to work. Each payday, people would spontaneously gather into 2 or 3 or 4 groups and head out to lunch together. Each day of the week, unless a private conference was being held with a client, our doors were open all down the hall, and people would stop by and chat for a moment, with one sitting in the guest chair and 2 or 3 standing in the doorway, and maybe another one standing to the side. It was wonderful. It was friendly. It was a daily celebration of our feeling of productivity and friendship. I still remember the celebration and joy on people's faces as I brought my new baby daughter, Nancy, to the office straight from the adoption agency. We celebrated Derby Day, this was Kentucky, of course, together. We celebrated Christmas and birthdays and courtroom successes. I also remember the change. I recall that people began to close their doors and all conversations began to be held in private. Group lunches became a thing of the past. Celebrations stopped. Faces reflected fear and sadness. Work became tedious and production fell off. Complaints from employees heretofore unheard of multiplied. Resignations, including mine, were submitted. An agency that had a sterling reputation for guarding the rights of the citizens of Kentucky was investigated by the Federal Equal Opportunity Commission. It wasn't the lack of celebration that changed the workplace from extraordinarily wonderful to horrendously awful. The lack of celebration was the miner's canary signaling the toxic poison already in the air. This is a cautionary tale of import. When you see the celebrations slow, become strained, or stop, immediately begin to look for the cause. Don't let the canary die. It is a signal that must not be ignored. Monetary rewards, awards, and certificates are not enough without celebration. Those that party together produce together. Celebration is the way we show our joy for the people around us, for the events in our lives, for the growth we are experiencing, for the support we are giving and receiving. Bills, children's grades, work, home, automobile repairs take up so much of our energy, time, and attention. Certainly, these are all things that must be dealt with. I suggest that we purposely find ways to incorporate joy, ritual, and celebration into our lives as often as possible. Definitely as often as needed. And as our world is today, we need it more often than not. Joy doesn't have to come from monumental or significant events. Sometimes they are just heartfelt occurrences because someone cares enough to listen and remember. In April, I visited my son Scott, my older son, in Nashville. On the way to the airport for my return home, he took me to get my favorite hamburger, which are not available in Florida, White Castles. I'm sorry, folks, but crystals just don't cut it. They ain't the same. They're second rate to White Castles. In the restaurant, a cookbook of White Castle recipes were on sale. I remarked on it. Nothing special, just an offhand mention that there was one. Imagine my surprise and joy when my birthday 3 months later arrived in the mail. I had forgotten about the book and my comment, he didn't. My joy of having the book was great, but secondary to his kindness and expression of love and joy, I read it page to page. And yeah, I'll have to use crystals to make the recipes, but it truly was the thought that counts here. It was, ice cream! Between now and January 1st, select a container, a jar, or a box. Decorate it or label it joys. Each time you experience a joy, write it on a card or a sticky note and put it in your container. On down days during the year, take one out, read it, and re-experience the joy. Savor it. Remember the smell or the color or the sound that went with it. Brighten up your life. You deserve it. Return it to your container because when New Year's Eve rolls around, it will be a great time to celebrate by recalling the joys from the year. Count them and dedicate yourself to increasing the number in the next year. Live truly. Life truly can be what we make it. Taking what comes our way and making the most of it. Making the best of it. We can take the down and resign ourselves to it, or twist it around in our favor. Design ritual. Recognize joy. Choose to celebrate. Make living well a priority. May these words resonate in your mind, in your heart, and through your actions.